Hey there, gang. It's Saturday night. It's 7:31 p.m. Welcome to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Look at that debt. $34,767 billion. One thing I've noticed is they seem to have slowed down the spending a little bit during campaign season. We're not getting, $80 billion going up every single week like we used to, if you guys remember that. So they're trying to be careful about it, I guess, during campaign season. But don't worry, as soon as the elections are over, they'll go back to doing about $1 trillion about every 80, 90, 100 days. So don't worry about that. Hey, give us a 5x5 if you can hear us, or feel free to put in your favorite gun caliber into, of course, the platform of choice. Hey, it's Grant. Original Intent is with us. Saturday nights are all right for fighting. All right, getting 5x5s in from YouTube. Let's see. Nothing on Odysee. 3 are watching, though. Thank you for joining us. And on Rumble, 11 people watching. No comments as of yet. And let's see what we're doing on Twitter here. Before we bring up the gang, they're all waiting. On Twitter. Yeah, Twitter hasn't started yet for some reason. Okay, well, that's fine. I don't have time to work on that and figure out what's wrong with it, but we are broadcasting on all cylinders. Welcome again to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Look at that debt, $34,767 billion. We like to do this every Saturday night. We have a live stream to remind people about how ridiculously high the U.S. national debt is, and they keep spending. They just won't stop. They won't cut spending. All right, I'm going to take down Joe Walsh now. Sorry about that, Joe. Let's bring up the gang and Gilded. So I'll unmute myself. We have with us tonight Voodoo Queen. We have Gretchen Garrity with us, who writes the blog Right to Win Ozarks. And we also have Mad Mom. She's currently muted, though, because she's in a noisy area. But as promised, I thought I would start by doing a little bit of a postmortem on what happened up in Jefferson City, and everyone's got their own take on this. And I'm just going to say it, just straight out first, and then we can go into the particulars. Guys, we have got to thin out the rhinos up in Jeff City. That's my take on this, because they were playing high school drama with the most important legislation of the year, which did not get through. The Plocker years, and by the Plocker years, I mean the 2 years that he served as Speaker of the House, are the two biggest legislative train wrecks we've ever had in the state of Missouri. And I hope he's proud. I don't know if that's what he wanted or not, but applying pressure and using your friends and, of course, not to mention, the influence, power, and money to try and get your legislative agenda done versus what the people want done is a losing strategy. Everybody loses. We lost this year, gang, and that's what we got with Plocker. So the people who vote for these people to be Speaker or pro tem or what have you in the Senate have to keep this in mind. If they keep doing what they've always been doing, they'll keep getting what they've always got, which is a legislative train wreck. And what happens at the end of the train wreck? I can tell you what happens. I've been doing this a long time. The House points at the Senate, and the Senate points at the House. No one takes personal responsibility, and it's left in a quagmire of, the House it was responsible, says the Senate. The Senate says, no, it's the House that caused this train wreck. And that's what we get every year. From my point of view, we have far too many rhinos in both the House and the Senate. We need to thin the herd. And that is probably why we're going to talk probably a little bit more about primaries tonight, even though we don't get involved in that kind of work as a group. As individuals, a lot of us do a lot of things for people that we like to see elected, but as a group, we don't endorse. We don't campaign for as a group. I don't speak on behalf of the Missouri Freedom Initiative at campaign stops for anyone. I don't do anything like that. And I don't think anyone else in the Missouri Freedom Initiative does either. But we do have people that we like, and there's reasons why we like them. But one of the conclusions that I have come to, and this is a very, very important thing, is we really truly cannot fix all these problems up in Jefferson City until we have the right leadership in the governor's office. So even as grassroots, going to the legislature and doing what we do, and we do it well. There's nothing wrong with what we did this year, even though we didn't get gold and silver across the finish line. More on that later. IP reform didn't get done either, and technically that was more important. But those were the two most important bills of the year, silver and gold. And I know people will laugh at that, especially people in the legislators, the rhinos and the corporatists will laugh at that. But I assure those people that really think it's a stupid fanboy type of bill, we have got to protect the Missouri citizens for what's coming. And what's coming is coming now. It's already starting. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. In fact, we may hold that back off till next week. But basically, the going forward with crypto and cryptocurrencies and let's just say digital assets from central banks. This is going forward, gang. This is meant to enslave us, entrap us. A digital prison, if you will. You know, the same type of system that they've always had before, but less reliance on people, more reliance on technology. That's the difference. So before I get into anything more, first of all, I want to tell everyone I'm really sorry that silver and gold did not get across the finish line. I want to let you guys know that we worked our butts off. We truly did. It was a tremendously positive campaign. I have not heard anything, not a single thing, saying, oh, the Missouri Freedom Initiative, did this, or the Missouri Freedom Initiative called up and swore at me, or, I've not heard anything like that. So we did a terrific job. The problem was Plocker wouldn't allow it. Now, I think that Patterson bears some of the blame here, but I don't know exactly how much, because I don't think it's within the particulars of how they actually do things in the House, their procedures, their policies, their rules. I don't think the floor leader can really just bring something up on the floor unless it's already been discussed, of course, with the House Speaker. Now, I can't prove that. And maybe someone can tell me that, no, they don't have to do that at all. But the fact of the matter is, I want to tell you guys, Plocker did promise Daniel Diaz and I on Thursday morning, the last Thursday of session before the last day, which was Friday. We had a chance meeting with Plocker in a parking garage beneath the Capitol building. And he did promise us gold and silver was coming up on Friday morning. So I think, first of all, I don't think he intended to lie on that. I'm going to give him an out on that, because I think he hoped the Senate would stay open and wanted to use it as leverage. That's what I think was going on. Now, can I prove it? No, I sure can't. But I think that that's probably exactly what happened. He was wanting to use it as leverage, and I think there were a lot of bills that Plocker wanted over the finish line that he simply did not get over the finish line. So for whatever reason, it seems like it's just in a blink of an eye, a year's worth of hard work is just suddenly over. And that can be very discouraging to grassroots. And I have things I want to say about this, and on several levels. First off, guys, there was a win for the people because so little legislation got actually done. I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it's something about 45 bills total, including the bills for the budget, or what we call appropriations. That's it. That's less than last year. So the Plocker years are very interesting indeed, because so little actually got done, because there's so much politicking, so much posturing going on up at Jefferson City, that they literally have to say this every single time someone comes to, in front of them with a bill saying, we're going to be looking at this today. Well, what's in it for me if I vote yes? What's in it for me if I vote no? We have too much of that up there. But the constituents are the ones who lose in this battle. every single time when legislators literally start thinking about this as in what they can get or what they can receive, what power they will get, what favors they will get if they vote one way or the other. O'Donnell, Representative O'Donnell, I did hear, was going around the House asking people to vote no on gold and silver. I didn't talk to him about that directly for reasons, because I was up there all week staying in a hotel. So I was up there with Daniel Diaz literally all day every day the last week. So we were even there when the gavel banged out for the House and everything, went to the House floor and visited with some of our friends on the House floor. And of particular interest, I just want to say hello to Cherie Tolson Reich, who, basically has been very gracious, very nice to the initiative, has always been, made time for us. And she was there, of course, on the floor, and we basically had to say goodbye because she's termed out. So some of the folks that we have really developed a great relationship are leaving because they have hit their 8 years. They can't run anymore. So I wish Cherie the best. I know that she's running for a local election. I believe it's for presiding commissioner where she lives. And I truly hope she gets it because I think there's a lot more in that woman for public service. And she does a great job doing it. But the other part is for the grassroots not to get discouraged when we have a year like this. In fact, we had 2 years in a row, but it was predictable, unfortunately. As much as we wanted to get silver and gold across the finish line, as good as it felt at certain points on this roller coaster ride during the year, we still did not get it over the finish line, and that is not a reason to quit. Now, I was on with Rob Carter recently, and I asked him to mark me at the last 5 minutes so I could actually come out with a message at the end of my 1 hour with him. And the message was really simple. For those who are concentrating on federal elections, understand how incredibly important it is to take care of your state first. That's your first priority, your state, local elections, all the way down to your mayor. Much more important than federal. And I can prove to you that is the case. I can actually prove it. In Biden's America, we have red states and we have blue states. And within the red states, we have ultra-conservative red states, such as Tennessee, Florida, Texas, states that are ultra-conservative, states with the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Look what Oklahoma did. Oklahoma, did something really awesome too. They said it's completely illegal to be an illegal alien in the state of Oklahoma. Not only will there be a fine, there'll be jail time. And they're being sued by the Department of Justice because that was signed by their governor. We can do things, and of course they'll lose. They'll lose that fight. The federal government, I mean. Oklahoma is going by the U.S. Constitution and by the Oklahoma Constitution. They're doing nothing wrong. But I'm sure like SEPA, they'll find a federal judge somewhere to overturn it until they can end up in the Supreme Court ultimately, which is probably where SEPA is going. And I don't have any updates for you, by the way. It's still in the Eighth Circuit. An actual written opinion has not been released as of yet. We're waiting for that. And I'm sure when it comes out, we'll hear from Ron Calzone or Aaron Dorr, because that is outside of the realm of the initiative. We don't do court stuff. But these are the two messages. In Biden's America, we still have greatness in some of these red states. Some of them, not all of them. They're doing great things. They're doing 10th Amendment things. They're taking their power back, despite the fact Biden is in the White House. The states are fighting, literally, to free themselves from the yoke of tyranny. And that's what we're attempting to do in Missouri as well. But with people like Plocher in charge of the House, we can't go very far. We're we're dog paddling a cruise liner. We don't have diesel engines here. We're dog paddling it. That's what it feels like with Plocher. But Plocher's gone now. Patterson's going in, and most likely it'll be Alex Riley being the floor leader in the House. So you might have a different scenario, a different chemistry to be sure. Alex Riley is a good guy, by the way. And so when it comes to the Senate, most likely we'll have O'Laughlin going in as pro tem, and I don't know who would go in as floor leader at this point. But the game changes. All the chess pieces get moved, and we have a new opportunity to educate and to introduce ourselves to the legislators. But here's the great thing about silver and gold, before I shut up here, so we can get some group conversation going. Here's the great thing about silver and gold. The silver and gold bill is so well known across the state that, I mean, all the work that we've done over the last 2 years is paying off. Everybody knows about silver and gold. If it were allowed on the floor, we would have had a vote, and that vote would have been yes. And I think that's why it wasn't allowed on the floor, is because Dean Plocher probably said, Bill Eigel cannot have this win. It will put him over the top in the polls. It'll make him popular. He will get, credit, basically for getting a populist bill over the finish line along with Bill Hardwick. And we can't have that because Dean Plocher probably doesn't want Bill Eigel. He probably wants Mike Kehoe. So that's my guess. But that's what happened. It simply wasn't called up on the floor. There's no strategy here that actually can go beyond a floor leader not bringing a bill to a floor. I mean, there's really little else you can do at that point. And he kept saying maybe all day long. Maybe. When people were asking, is silver and gold coming on the floor? Maybe. And many people asked him. I believe over a dozen representatives walked up to Patterson on Friday on the House floor and were whispering to him, when you bringing up silver and gold? I don't know. Is it coming up on the floor? Maybe. That's all he would say. And I had that from a very good source, by the way. So at any rate, IP initiative, or the IP reform, or we should really call it ratification reform, didn't get brought up either. So that's a problem. And that's a very serious problem, because that was the highest priority for the GOP, for their platform. And yet it got missed. How do you explain that to your constituents? How do you go on the campaign trail and say, oh, it was the Senate's fault? Because Dean Plocher, he's running for Secretary of State now. I'm sure in the TV interviews he'd go, well, if the Senate didn't mess around with the bill so much, keep changing it, like Mary Elizabeth did. And that, too, is true. And that is a problem. That is most certainly a problem. Mary Elizabeth Coleman, who is also running for Secretary of State, wants to be in charge of elections and messed around with her own bill to the point where it couldn't be voted on. IP reform, or, ratification reform. She messed around with her own bill. This is a problem. Guys, we have problems in Jefferson City. We all know it. But when silver and gold, such an easy bill, such a popular bill, doesn't get brought up on the floor, we've got some issues that we've got to deal with, we've got to work on. But the fact of the matter is, it really kind of lies with Plocher, in my opinion. But I do think Patterson is going to have to take some of the blame. He should have literally called Plocher on his little phone. They're on the opposite ends of the House floor. Called him up and said, I want to bring up silver and gold. Everyone's asking for it. The support is there. The votes are whipped. We can get it over the finish line. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. And I don't believe he did that. And if he did, and if Plocher said, don't you dare, then we need to know. We need to know if that happened. So, all right. So I think I'll open it up here, and we can keep the discussion going on legislation or how the year went or primaries. I mean, actually, everything's on the table. But essentially, I think most people here would probably agree with me that we have a rhino problem that needs to be corrected, and how we correct that is through primaries and elections. So in order to do that, we have to expose them. Plocher is not a rhino. I've never described Plocher as a rhino. And I actually pray for that man. I've described him as a corporatist. So that's a problem with him. However, people that are running for a guy who is running for lieutenant governor, and that would be Lincoln Huff, is a rhino. He is a Democrat. So that's a problem with him. So he's termed out as a senator now. He's running for the lieutenant governor spot. Remember now, he has the best hair up at the Capitol. So that's how I remember him. His legislation, I remember as being very, very liberal. All of his votes are very, very liberal. But his hair, he's got the best hair in Jefferson City for a Democrat. I got to tell you that. Okay, opening it up to conversation. I'm sorry I talked so long, gang. And let me take a... Go ahead.
Well, Yeah, I'm already. Tell me the difference between a corporatist and a rhino.
Sure. A rhino essentially is a Democrat wearing Republican clothing. A corporatist is someone who doesn't have firm beliefs and is willing to change their beliefs if the price is right. So they're willing to get off the platform. Like, for instance, Plocker. I describe him as a corporatist. He was paid in PAC money by the Missouri Realtors Association to kill IP reform last year and this year. So it's not that he is against the platform. It's just if you pay him enough money, he'll go against the platform on one issue. So that's a corporatist. It's probably oversimplified, but that's essentially what a corporatist is. So corporatists just take money and they'll do whatever they're asked to do for that amount of money. So they're kind of like a prostitute.
Kinda.
Yep. So more than kinda.
Yeah.
So, Misty Atkinson is with us. She says 27 bills excluding the budget, and I think there were 22 appropriations bills. So that would take us up to 49, a total of 49. So, yep. Let's see. Warrior Class 3 says, my rep, Hannah Kelly, is a rhino, as is my senator, Justin Brown. I guess I'll be voting for anyone running against them. That is definitely one way to go. Doesn't matter if they're Democrats, since they're the same thing anyway. That is correct. But at least you know what you expect when you get a Democrat in office. You pretty much know where they're going. With the rhinos, you think you get a Republican, and suddenly they're very, very liberal in their point of views, throwing liberal amendments on very conservative bills, that sort of thing. And I don't mean to turn it into a right-left paradigm thing. It's a constitutional versus unconstitutional measure is what it is. So that's...
I would say it's even more simple. It's good versus evil.
Yep. Yeah, it is. I mean, essentially it is. Let's see. Gretchen writes, Trump is speaking momentarily at the Libertarian Convention. It's a poop show. The Missouri GOP convention looks good by comparison. Unbelievable, but true. That's another interesting thing that happened in Missouri. Those of you who did not know, the Missouri GOP convention, which happened in Springfield roughly 3 weeks ago, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was on a Saturday, was an absolute crap show. It just, I don't remember the name of the guy, the GOP guy, but
Nick Myers.
Yeah, that's it, Nick Myers. He slowed down the whole show to make sure they couldn't vote on a new platform. Devastating. Absolutely devastating. In fact, there's a lot of GOPers that are calling for a new convention because they couldn't actually get Sophie in as GOP chairwoman. And then on top of which, they never did vote on the platform. And that's exactly what the rhinos were attempting to do. And remember, this is in a state where we can't seem to get vetting done because the HRCC and others are threatening lawsuits against any county Republican Central Committee that tries to vet their candidates. They sue them, even though statutorily we're supposed to be vetting. It doesn't matter. Democrats, Republicans, they're all supposed to be vetted. Libertarians, whatever, what have you. And to be threatened with lawsuits constantly has got to be infuriating for them. In fact, it's gotten to the point now where as opposed to fighting them anymore on vetting, the rhinos are running for all positions in many, many major Republican central committees across the state of Missouri. Rhinos are trying to completely take over the central committees now. So that's their way of dealing with us wanting to vet them. So that way they can get away from the whole vetting process. They can stop the argument completely. So will it be a rhino takeover? I think not. But one thing remains clear. The leadership that we have from the governor's mansion is very, very, very important this primary and this election. And I can't even stress how important this is. If we want a different culture within the Missouri body politic, if we want to clean up the mess, if we want to drain the swamp, we must have extremely strong conservative leadership in, unfortunately, the governor's mansion, which we have not had with Parson. Parson's about as lukewarm as you can get. He was a really, really lukewarm leader. And in fact, I would say even worse than that, because remember during we're on YouTube, but I'll talk about this a bit. You guys remember during COVID, right? We had the strong leadership going in Jefferson City. The governor saying, I'm not gonna do any lockdowns. We'll let the counties and the cities decide for themselves how they want to handle this, right? Great leadership there, except for he exempted all state employees from the COVID vaccine. He forgot about the people. Just forgot about us. That just didn't even enter into the equation in his executive order. So he got state contractors and state employees exempted from the COVID shot when corporations were wanting to start mandating them. And that means in hospitals as well as any other corporation. If they're a state employee, they were exempted. But yeah, there's nothing left for the rest of us. That told me exactly who Parson was. I didn't really need to think real hard to figure out where Parson was going with that, but that's what he got. And here's the sad part. So many people thought that he actually exempted everyone in Missouri, if they wanted to be, from the COVID vaccine, and were writing thank you notes to him on Twitter. They didn't read it. They absolutely did not read that executive order from the governor. That's the problem. They didn't read it. And that's an issue we have here in Missouri. We need to be reading legislation. Missouri Liberty Report's chiming in. And that's our good friend John Williams. I saw him at the Capitol on Friday, by the way. Last Friday. Not yesterday. He says, Jefferson City needs an enema. And I agree. And Warrior Class says, Eigel for governor. That's my personal opinion as well. So I'm asked all the time, who are you going to vote for? And I just tell them outright, right now, there is absolutely no contest to me. We need Bill Eigel in as governor. We have to clean this mess up, because if we don't, the stakes are so high at this point. We could become Illinois within 10 years at the rate the state is going right now if we can't get this under control. Case in point, as well as example, 727. SB 727, which is something that we probably shouldn't bring up. It'll bring our blood pressure up. It's one of the bad bills that got through. And if you guys don't remember, this was actually the bill that actually brought school vouchers to Missouri everywhere. So it's government vouchers. That's what it is. These are not no strings attached vouchers. Okay, why am I bringing this up as case in point and example? The state didn't want this. They didn't want this. And I'm not just saying this to be automatically gainsaying what someone might say in the House or the Senate. I saw the votes. The people didn't want it. In fact, they didn't want it so strongly. 27 grassroots organizations across the state banded together with a large percentage of Republican Central Committees to send a document literally up to Jefferson City for everyone to see. And what we got out of that was, you guys are paid off with liberal dark money. That's the only explanation for you being against this wonderful, bill that we want, and it's part of the Republican mandate. It's on the platform. No. Government vouchers are not. They never were. No strings attached vouchers is exactly what this was about. And we didn't get that. It's not even possible to go there. In fact, for that reason alone, there are two systems in place right now, and that's the Retha system, Retha being my wife, actually exposing the school numbers. But unfortunately, despite our best efforts, a lot of these school bonds went through. So this is how we're becoming Illinois, by the way. And then you have the David Court system of actually getting the school systems off the MSBA. and actually moving into different directions, different arenas, so they don't have to take the woke academia and the woke idealism, the woke hiring practices from the MSBA and DESE and shove them into your kids' faces in your local public school. That's what we're trying to do here. So these are probably the two best ways of handling it. We will never get no strings attached vouchers. Government wants their fingers in every pie. And that's a pretty big pie there, gang. 25% of the state budget. That is one big blueberry pie. Yep. Let's see. HRC, according to Misty, HRCC supposedly telling reps not to vet. So, and yeah, I know it's actually, it's really, really sad. The HRCC is the House Republican Campaign Committee. And when you get elected into office, I talked about this actually on Carter's show on Tuesday. You get elected into office, you're a House member, and you're a Republican. Your first 2, 3, 4, or 5 days at work, someone mysterious, like a Men in Black, show up, give you an envelope, put it down on your desk right in front of you and slowly push it towards you. And it's a sealed envelope. And you open up that envelope, and that's the recommended donation that you, as now a new House member, are supposed to make to the House Republican Campaign Committee. Sometimes it's $10,000, sometimes it's $5,000, sometimes it's $50,000. They go by their own metrics to figure out exactly how much you're supposed to donate, the recommended donation from the HRCC. And so if you don't make that donation, then they have to strongly consider using the money that's being donated to them by everyone else in the House to find someone to run against you in the next cycle, because you're not playing ball, right? This is something that you won't hear most representatives talk about openly, but they will talk about this kind of stuff privately. So it's, if I right now had a representative come on the show, they probably wouldn't want to talk about that process, not so much publicly. You get them in a private conversation on the phone or in their office, they'll be very happy to tell you how much their envelope said for them to donate and whether or not they donated. They'll actually let you know that. But apparently this is not something that they like to talk about in, public venues, such as a live stream. Does that mean that it's, something that is horribly in the dark? No. Everyone knows it. It's an open secret up there. So there's other things going on up there which we need more corroboration on. The speakeasy. We've heard all kinds of stuff about the speakeasy, but once again, it's all hearsay. How much of that can we say is true and how much can we say is not true? We're not really 100% sure. But the rumors swirling around Jeff City about not going to the speakeasy to have a drink, is probably good advice, by the way. That's all I'll say on that. So, not vetting their candidates, says Maria 28. Very shady stuff. Yes, in fact, not vetting their candidates is not shady. That's just lazy. But when they're literally sued if they vet candidates, that's where it gets pretty darn shady real quick. And that's what they're dealing with. Dark Helmet says, sips my beer. I knew it all along. Dark Helmet, if that's what you were thinking, you were absolutely right. It's a very, very bad situation, guys, when it comes to this kind of stuff that we have going on in politics, but it can be corrected. We have to get the right people in office. And that's where primaries and general elections come into play here. So I'm sorry. I feel like I've been hogging everything up here. You got anything, Gretchen or Voodoo?
Well, I liked what you were saying about 727.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm stuck on that one because I felt like so much political capital was burned with that bill.
Yep.
And it's going to be a nightmare, and it'll be a nightmare sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So I kind of just want to keep that one alive.
Yeah. Well, you're right on that. For instance, one thing I'd like to say, and I did talk about this on Carter's show too, so I'm repeating myself a little bit, except for those of you who haven't seen me on Rob Carter's show, News Talk STL. And that is that we have heroes as well. And we don't, because we talk about the bad things a lot, and we need to talk about the good things. I want to talk about Bill Hardwick for a second. And if you guys remember, he sponsored HB 1955, which was, the silver and gold bill, the competing bill, or companion bill, I should say, to Bill Eigels in the Senate. And he worked that very, very hard. But not only did he work it very hard, he also saw what was going on with 727. And he took a very active participation in hearing out the people that had a problem with the bill. As opposed to, and I hate to say this because some of our friends up in Jeff City poo-pooed us. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not reading the bill. You don't understand. You're not a school teacher. You're not in DESE. You don't even understand this stuff anyway. And then it came down to, oh, you're taking Democrat dark money. That's the only reasonable explanation for why you're against 727. That's what we got. But you look at Bill Hardwick. Bill Hardwick didn't make any of those accusations. Bill Hardwick actually met with folks that drove in from all over the state to meet with him and a few other House reps to actually hear them out on what they had to say about 727. Not only that, Bill Hardwick also said that it was like 50-1 in his district, 50 phone calls and emails against 727 versus the 1-4. And that's how bad the ratio was. He actually told me this, so I'm not making this stuff up. So he voted no on 727. But unfortunately, that came at a very, very high price because leadership informed him, if you vote no on 727, you will lose all of your legislation for the year. It's gone. It's not moving anymore. You vote how you want, but just know that that's what happens if you vote no. He voted no. And by God, he lost everything. He lost all of his legislation. He lost 1955. And in fact, that may be the reason why 735 didn't make it to the House floor, because he was the handler. So
Right.
maybe that was taken away from him too. We don't know this. I'm speculating on that part of it, by the way. So don't want you guys to think that I was told this. I was not. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But the fact is, Bill literally stuck with the people. He did not get on the ship, the good ship lollipop leadership, and say, I'll do whatever you want. Just don't take away my legislation, which is what a lot of people do up in Jeff City, unfortunately. Bill Hardwick did not do that. Bill Hardwick took the road less traveled, and he did pay the price, unfortunately. But that's the kind of people Plocker and Patterson are. That's the kind of people they are. So know this. If you tell your rep to vote no on a bill and they vote yes, understand the pressure that they're under from leadership. Or, I'm sorry, in the past. We're going to get new leadership, supposedly. But that's what happened in the past. A lot of people ended up voting yes because they were under tremendous pressure from leadership to literally go against their own constituents. And the price was simple. And it was simple. It was easy to understand. No need to repeat. You lose your legislation for the year if you vote no on this bill. And that's exactly what he got. Bill Hardwick is a hero. He actually voted with what his constituents wanted. And thankfully, that was after the last day to register to run for office, so the HRCC couldn't run someone against him. So, and I'm speculating again, but I think that basically the HRCC has a target on everyone who voted no on 727. Even though the state didn't want it, the public schools didn't want it, the homesteaders didn't want it, the homeschoolers didn't want it. I mean, the only organization that we're really aware of that's really Missouri-based that wanted it was Americans for Prosperity. That was it. But it looks like they got PAC money on that one. So maybe they didn't want it, but they wanted the money, so therefore they had to go ahead and push it. We don't know.
Well, Heritage Action also was for that bill. by the way. And
Heritage
I
Action.
got that straight. I
Oh,
got that straight from their mouth.
yep. John writes, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And I wonder what new rules Patterson will come up with, Grant. That's an excellent question. And in fact, I have that marked down for basically an August podcast, or not podcast, but a live stream. We need to talk about the House rules. And where it really becomes necessary that we really get a really hardcore conversation going is right after the general elections. We need to stop these people from voting away their power, giving it to the Speaker of the House, like Plocker had them do with H.R. 11. If you guys remember, January 11th, 2023, it was a day that lives in infamy. That was the worst set of House rules we've ever seen before, penned by Plocker. Of course, the credit goes to Patterson. Patterson gets credit for sponsoring the bill, but that was a Plocker bill that he gave to Patterson. And it was the worst House rules we have ever seen before. Pretty much the Speaker just kind of absorbed all the power from the representatives. We knew what was going on. And so at any rate, that's, and then Misty is saying here, reps being bullied and threatened with legislation not moving, and maybe more. That's correct, Misty. That's what we're dealing with. The reps literally need to be courageous and come forward and talk about these things so we can deal with this corruption up in Jefferson City so we don't become Illinois. So I regard Bill Hardwick as one of those heroes. Really, truly. For him, he literally gave it all up to vote no on one bill. He gave up everything, maybe even silver and gold. And you know what? If we lost silver and gold because he voted with his constituents, and that was the penance that he had to pay from leadership, from Plocker, I have no problem with that. Bill Hardwick should be voting for his constituents, what they want. That's his job. It's all the others that didn't do it. You know, for instance, Bob Titus is my rep. He voted yes. He knows very well that everyone in the district was a no. He voted yes. He was pressured.
He's a homeschool dad, too.
Yep, and he's a homeschool dad. So at any rate, he has his reasons. And but I'll tell you what, if we don't get Bill Eigel in as governor and we start literally downsizing DESE, like January, February timeframe of 2025, that 727 is going to come back to haunt a lot of people who said, well, this is really a good bill as long as you could downsize DESE. Well, if Mike Kehoe gets in there, DESE's going to grow. It's going to grow exponentially. He loves DESE. Mike Kehoe is running for governor. He is a rhino. He is a Democrat. He is soft on abortion. He is soft on gun control. That is a problem. He's soft on education. Now, I don't know exactly where Ashcroft stands on this, but if we don't shrink, in fact, I think he has said openly and publicly he wants to shrink DESE too. But Bill Eigel has been saying it for many years. DESE has too much power, too much control. We must downsize them. We need to take that to the bank, actually. When we're going in for primaries, we need to really think about this. 727 can make Missouri as desolate, for public schooling as states like New York and Illinois. We could literally be chasing the homeschoolers out of this state. Or we can downsize DESE so 727 is virtually meaningless. Those are the two options, gang. So if you want DESE downsized, if you want to maintain, basically the anonymity that comes with homeschooling, the way you want to teach your child, with no state involvement, no state interference, no merging of two definitions from a piece of legislation, between homeschoolers that take a voucher versus homeschoolers who don't, like happened in North Carolina and West Virginia, vote for Bill Eigel. Now, I don't tell people how to vote. I'm simply stating that Bill Eigel has been on top of downsizing DESE for a long, long time. And I'm not sure that that's true with Ashcroft at this point. And that certainly is not true with Kehoe. So Let's see. Ashcroft was whipping the 727 vote, according to Misty, and I know that to be true as well. And also, there were many other people whipping the vote there, too. You had the Lieutenant Governor Kehoe whipping votes for 727. Why? Because constituents were telling their representatives vote no. And leadership was going around and whipping the votes every single day. And they would go to an office and they'll say, how are you going to vote on 727? The guy would be sitting behind his desk saying, I'm going to vote no. My constituents are telling me to vote no. So what they did at that point is, you're going to lose all your legislation. Well, that's fine. I only had 3 pieces of legislation, and they're not going anywhere anyway. So, now we bring out the big guns. Now we're going to roll out Ashcroft and Kehoe to put pressure on these people in Plocker's office in groups of 5 at a time. The lengths they went through to get 727 across the border, across the finish line, across, basically the swamp, just dredging the swamp with the 727. It's like marinated with swamp creatures, this piece of legislation that grew from 12 pages to 167 pages of woke nonsense and other bad stuff. And the Kehoe, Lieutenant Governor Kehoe and Secretary Ashcroft were behind pushing it. So keep that in mind. Thank you for that, Misty. I appreciate that. Let's see. Parsons and Kehoe, please everyone to please no one. That's correct. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And guys, I don't know what else to say about this. Yes, I'm a little bit angry. I want to say hello to Shane Gordon reporting in from Minnesota on Rumble. B. Hoffner from Perryville. And hello to B. Hoffner. I met you up in Jeff City, actually, I believe. And she says she's really tired of the corruption in Jeff City. I am too. But the fact is, they're fighting back now. That's the bad part. So I would really, really like to see them back down a little bit. That would be nice. We've seen it in the past. But now they're saying, instead of backing down from their misdeeds, they're coming up with rumors about the grassroots taking Democrat dark money. So that's...
I'm still waiting for my check.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I had to go right back to work because I took a month off to try and get silver and gold across the finish line. If I had Democrat dark money, I could do so much good up in Jefferson City. But Scott Fawn started that rumor in September of 2023, if you guys remember. And it was aimed at rogue politics and myself. That we took Democrat dark money to expose Dean Plocker on Fireside. Do you guys remember that? I'm sure Voodoo does. Yeah. So the rumor persists that the grassroots are actually rhinos.
Democrats. Yeah.
So that's what we're hearing. And Gretchen, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was all over. AFP's lobbyist, Camelia Peterson, was going on and on about how the grassroots were really, basically Democrats and it was the most ridiculous gaslighting I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, that is what we saw. And that is how they retaliated, right? Instead of actually withdrawing and changing their vote and saying, I'm going to go with my constituents, it was so important to them to get this one piece of legislation across. They literally started the rumor, the grassroots are Democrats. The grassroots are Democrats. It's not us Republicans that are doing Democrat things and voting in Democrat ways with legislation in Jeff City. It's the grassroots that are the problem. They're Democrats. That's how they fought back. And they said it on the floor.
Or they're or they're far right wing extremists. So the people who are actually I call them the woke right, like AFP and certain other representatives and stuff. They're changing the definitions of what Republican and conservative mean to the woke right, and then they're claiming everybody else is either a Democrat or an extreme on the right.
Sure. Because that's the only reasonable, logical explanation, right? It's not that, what they're voting for is not a good thing for Missouri. They got paid pretty well to do this. Plocker got $205,000 of PAC money. Patterson got $150,000 of PAC money. Andrew Koenig got $100,000. Caleb Rowden got $100,000 of PAC money. Guys, that's why this bill went through. The leadership was paid and paid well. I mean, this wasn't chump change. They needed this for their, for running for higher office. That's why we had 727 go through. Not because it was on the Republican platform, because what was on the Republican platform really meant no strings attached vouchers. What we got was very, very different. We got government control of private schools now. They already had charter schools and public. Now they got private. And any homeschooler that takes a voucher now goes under the thumb of government as well, under Odysee. And also, rules are promulgated by the Treasury, which is interesting as well. So that's what we got out of this. Is this what Missouri wanted? The answer is a flat, easy no. This is not what we wanted. But they had to vote yes because they were given money in advance to do so, to get it over the finish line no matter what. And Plocker needed that $205,000. You know why? Because he is so scandal-ridden that he can't get big donations anymore. The big front money man, Dean Plocker, is hurting financially because of all the scandals. So he had to stop running for lieutenant governor and run for Secretary of State instead, which takes significantly less money to run for that position. But he wants statewide position. And do you want a man? Let's start with, by the way, I'd like to say hello to Grant, who just joined us. Hey there, buddy.
Hello.
Hey, let me talk about the man who is one of the people running for Secretary of State. His name is Dean Plocker. Scandal number one. And this was brought to us by Missouri First, Ron Calzone's group. Scandal number one is that he took PAC money from the Missouri Realtors Association to kill IP reform or morph it into something that was absolutely useless and the voters would say no on. That was scandal number one. Scandal number two was broken by Rogue Politics on our channel, Missouri Freedom Initiative. And that was that Plocker was trying to shove the Fireside software down the throats of everyone in the House without appropriations and without vetting the software or the company. And that he was going to get $800,000 of PAC money if they made the $800,000 purchase. So basically the software is free. We all know that because the real currency is information, and that's what they would get with this constituency management package. Scandal number three, double dipping on expense reports. So he literally, mistake or not, 9 times. I don't know if you can call 9 times a mistake. It's really more of a pattern. 9 times he charged his campaign and the House for travel expenses. The same receipt he would be reimbursed from both places. And then scandal number 4 was how much money was spent turning a perfectly good representative's office into a liquor cabinet, for the House. Those were the 4 scandals of Dean Plocker. We have not had an apology from him yet, and he is running for Secretary of State and wants to run the state's elections. We know now that he takes money for favors. Do you really want him controlling Missouri elections? I don't think that's a good idea.
There's no way we would ever go back to paper ballots with him as Secretary of State.
Yep, I agree with you. I think we would have to get away from that if he became Secretary of State. We'd have to legislatively get away from electronic voting machines altogether. Just go with paper ballots and hand counting. And then pray for the best. But at the same time, we do have Denny running for Secretary of State as well. So we do have a good guy running. So maybe that's not so bad. But I'm just letting you guys know who are watching these live streams, either live or after the fact, that we do have bad actors in the state of Missouri running for higher office. And we know these people. We have been in Jeff City for 5 years. We have been spending a lot of time up there. We have seen these people operate. We know what they do. They have lied to our faces. Dean Plocker is one of them. Dean Plocker has lied to my face and to Daniel's face. He lied to us. He's lied to, I suspect he's lied to Bill Eigel. I mean, so he does lie when he's making deals. He lies. He makes deals, and then he lies, and then he does something completely different. But then again, he's a politician. But someday he's actually going to apologize to the people of Missouri for all the messed up crap he's been pulling here for the last couple of years. But sociopaths don't say they're sorry, ever. Because if you say you're sorry and you're a sociopath, you are admitting weakness. That's what sociopaths are not interested in admitting their weaknesses. They're only interested in showing off their strengths. So, at any rate, that's my take on Dean Plocker running for Secretary of State. He's too politically damaged to run for lieutenant governor, can't raise enough money to run for lieutenant governor, therefore switch down to Secretary of State. And I suggest to you that Secretary of State is possibly a very dangerous position for someone like Plocker to have. So, am I telling you who to vote for? No. But I will say that I am not voting for Plocker for these reasons. I have 5 years up there, gang. 5 years, and some of you do. Some of you here in the chat do. You guys have the time. You've seen what Plocker does, what he's capable of. You've seen he refuses to apologize when he gets caught doing something wrong. He never says he's sorry. He never says, I'm truly sorry. I made a mistake. This is on me, and I'm going to make it right. What he doesn't say is, I'm sorry. He will say, a mistake has been made, and I am definitely making it right. That's what he'll say. But he doesn't say he's sorry. I suspect it's because there's a possibility. And once again, I only have 2 years of psychology, so it's not like, I'm a psychologist or anything. But knowing about the personality disorders, I suspect that Plocker has some characteristics of a sociopath because he does not apologize when he does something wrong. Maybe he does to his family. I certainly hope he does to his wife. But he certainly won't to the people of Missouri that he has been serving, not very well, by the way, but serving for the past 8 years. And by the way, he was a problem during SEPA as well, particularly in 2019 with Elijah Haar. And I'm not going to go into that now. That's spilt milk under the bridge, and Elijah Haar's not even there anymore. But the fact of the matter is, my memory is long. I remember the stuff that Plocker was up to, and I absolutely will not be voting for that man for Secretary of State. So if he wants to come be mayor of Clever, Missouri, I might just say yes to that. You want to continue in public service? You might be a mayor of a town of 2,000 people. Can't do a lot of damage there. Maybe that's where he should be going at this point. I'm sorry, another
You should just run for mayor. You should just run for mayor of Town and Country.
There you go. And so, and we'll talk more about this stuff, but what I'm saying is these primaries are so important, gang. And I know that some people would say we shouldn't even have primaries. Basically the Republican Central Committees are supposed to, could be taking care of this. That takes time and effort, energy, money, for the state to be doing primaries. But we do have them. And while we have them, we need to make sure that the worst people do not get, continue up the process to the general elections. So we will be talking about these people for the next 2 months and what they have done while in the state of Missouri. Like, for instance, Holly Rader. Holly Rader, yep, I don't have nice things to say. Holly is very nice to me when I'm up at the Capitol, and I'm nice to her. But I'll never forget the prescription drug monitoring program that had to get shoved through before SEPA was allowed through in 2021. That was her bill. That was her bill. And, of course, that unfortunately put a red flag in for firearms. So even though they claim they put in, some kind of statement or some kind of description of some sort in that legislation that said very specifically, except for guns. But it does say in there that they will follow HIPAA mandates, rules, and regulations. HIPAA already has rules and regulations against firearms with certain medications. That's a problem. That was Holly Rader. Holly Rader did that to us. So we actually have one red flag in Missouri right now, one red flag law. And that's through Holly Rader, who is running for, I believe it's lieutenant governor.
That is correct. Okay.
So, we could, we should talk about crab cakes. You know what? I'm going to save that for another live stream. I'm going to bring up that old video when we were trying to get SEPA across the finish line when it was in Crab Cakes Tender Mercies. And so we can all watch that and have some fun with it again. And that would be Senator Lincoln Huff. We dubbed him Senator Crab Cakes. And that's because we had a special live stream in his honor during the SEPA legislation about 3 weeks before the end of the session. And it was sitting in his committee, and they weren't doing anything with it. So we did a live stream in his honor, called up senators, and told them that we're doing a live stream for Senator Lincoln Huff. Be sure to let him know about it so he can come on and talk to us. And he never showed up for this live stream. It went on for an hour, plenty of time for him to get on and talk to us. So we began to speculate in that hour why Senator Lincoln Huff couldn't make time for this, because this was SEPA. This was the Second Amendment Preservation Act. You know, the biggest 10th Amendment bill that America has ever seen before is in his care, in his committee, not moving. So we theorized that he had crab cakes the night before and he was having difficulty and was in the bathroom. So that's how he got the nickname Senator Crab Cakes. And apparently it caught on for a little while anyway in the Senate. So he didn't like that. And in fact, his chief of staff, Pat, I don't remember her last name, she actually wouldn't let me in the office. I don't know if you guys remember seeing that. Every time I went to Lincoln Huff's office, she would stand in the doorway. So I couldn't, and we're talking the threshold of the doorway of the office from the hall, and wouldn't let me go into the office, wouldn't let me go talk to Crab Cakes. So
I think she did that with anyone, though.
Maybe she did. Maybe she did do that with other people, though, but she certainly did it with me.
Maybe we all should send toilet paper to his campaign.
Yep. That could be, useful. After all, isn't what toilet paper what everyone was getting during the zombie apocalypse we call the COVID scamdemic? You know, if anyone has it, if anyone has any leftover additional toilet paper that they don't need, please send it to Crab Cakes. That would be sent care of Senator Lincoln Huff, Hough. So, yep. If you're feeling generous, send him a roll of toilet paper, and then just put a Post-it note on there and just say, "This is for you, Crab Cakes." So, no, I'm not telling anyone to do that, but yeah, we can be juvenile with our humor from time to time and everything, but my God, you're dealing with the state of Missouri. You have got to have a sense of humor. You really, truly do. Otherwise, you'll go nuts. I'd like to say that John Williams with the Missouri Liberty Report, actually, we can be juvenile with our humor from time to time and everything, but hang on, sorry about that. That's my fault. John Williams joined us on the last legislative day up in Jefferson City, so it was really good to see him up there. Hadn't seen him up there in a while. And so he reported on Sam's show, basically how things actually went, at the Capitol. But there was so much joking. Guys, you're in for a real treat. If you didn't listen to last Sunday night's Off the Cuff with Sam and Trish Britton, John Williams was the guest, and it was just a lot of fun to listen to. So treat yourself. It's last Sunday. And also, if you didn't get my email newsletter, Sam is moving his show to Wednesdays. So he is not having a show tomorrow night. It'll probably be a rebroadcast during his slot. But he is moving his show to Wednesday nights. And actually, I didn't even respond to that when he sent out that email asking people, if it would be okay or what their ideas were. I didn't even say anything to him. But that actually works out better for me as well. But I didn't want, since the session got over, I have been literally up to my eyeballs in work. I put off a lot of work. I didn't work for about a month, really. And so I had to get back to work. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. But I have to work, though. That's how I get paid. As Voodoo said, I have not received the liberal dark money checks, despite the fact that that people like Krista Finelli are on the House floor talking about the grassroots taking this liberal dark money. I have yet to receive any. So at any rate, if anyone's received liberal dark money, please let us know. And let us know what you're doing with the money, too. I mean, everyone's kind of interested. So if any of you grassroots have received liberal dark money checks, we need to let Krista Finelli know, first off, and then let us know what you're doing with the money. Are you, is it mad money? Are you doing like stupid stuff with the money? Like, putting in a swimming pool and filling it with Jell-O or something like that? Or are you using it to live on? Or, are you investing it? Or are you giving it to Plocker, for something, that you want from them next year? Just let us know. We'd be happy to hear what you guys are doing with the liberal dark money that Krista Finelli said on the House floor that the Missouri
I'll go into MoDOT.
It's going to MoDOT. Yeah, that's probably it. Actually, that's a really good point, so because we keep on trying to reduce that gas tax over here, the shots gas tax. So they're going to need the
roads.
Yep. And that's a funny thing, too. We're paying a lot of taxes for our roads in Missouri, but I feel like our roads are in really rough shape. And there's lots of, there's a section of Highway 60 in South Springfield. They've had, blocked off for, 4 years now. And there's caterpillars there and bulldozers and all the equipment's there. But it's been sitting there for years, rusting. The work never happens there, it seems like. So I have seen some work at night, but that was last year. I haven't seen it this year yet. So, yeah, the potholes are not getting filled. So how do you feel about that, Missouri, with the increased gas taxes we're paying now? We used to have much cheaper gas. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Opening it up. You guys say something. I kind of hogged up all the time. Anyone?
Just to reiterate your Secretary of State comments, I'd be concerned if it was Plocker or even Mary Elizabeth Coleman got that nomination.
Yep.
At that point, it'd almost be better just to vote Democrat.
Yeah, I think so too. If that happens, that we'll deal with it when we get there. But you're right. Yeah. We do have a problem with people like Holly Rader, Lincoln Huff, and Plocker running for higher office. These guys have not been conservatives. They run as Republicans, but they vote very differently. In the case of Plocker, he simply prevented the legislation that he didn't want to vote on from ever going to the floor. So Lincoln Huff wasn't that lucky. So Lincoln Huff has a terrible voting record. He would if he were vetted, he would either have to run as an independent or a Democrat. And the same thing is true of Caleb Rowden. Same thing is true there. So he would not be able to run as a Republican if he were vetted. He was actually warned about that. So that's why he's not running anymore, I think. But Lincoln Huff.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I even drive around Jeff here, and there's Lincoln Huff has signs, and Mike Keogh has signs.
Everything okay over there, man?
But anyway, just outside the Missouri Corn Association and the Soybean Association, these aren't constituents. They're basically function as lobbyist groups, and they're letting them put signs up in front, so where their money's coming from.
Right. Yep. Well,
I have a question.
Go for it.
Where do you all think that the grassroots is at this point? What's its state of being?
I think there's a lot. 727 took the wind out of a lot of grassroots sales. And that's what I'm hearing. And the people that I talk to, the grassroots leaders across the state, are still very upset about 727 getting over the finish line. The fact is the governor will not veto that. So, but there is no harm in making your voice known to the governor's office. That is 573-751-3222. Notice how I know that one by heart, by the way. There is no problem with calling up the governor's office and literally saying, please veto 727. But I don't think he's gonna.
He already signed it.
He already signed it. Okay,
Signed
gotcha.
it, yeah.
Didn't even know about that.
I mean, at this point, we really need a special session for IP reform.
Yep, I agree. In fact, that's something that I have had a few loose discussions on, but nothing I'm prepared to talk about, and that's with other grassroots leaders to try and start putting pressure. Go ahead.
Parsons doesn't have the backbone for that.
Nope, but if the grassroots are calling for it, there's a possibility. If the Republican Central Committees are calling for it, there will be a possibility, but it really is too late. Even if we got that done, in a special session, it would be on the same ballot along with the abortion initiative. So, that's the thing. And by the way, we're not sure where the abortion initiative is yet. We're not 100% sure. And I've been talking to Missouri Right to Life, too, by the way. They're not sure that they got enough signatures from 6 out of 8 congressional districts. That's being worked on right now. That's being looked at. They can't collect any more signatures, but they may have fallen a little short on 1 or 2 of those congressional districts. But we don't know yet. I don't want to spread a rumor. You okay, buddy?
Well, how would that even be implemented with defunding of Planned Parenthood?
No, that's separate. That's completely separate. So the defunding of Planned Parenthood versus allowing abortions up to 9 months in the state of Missouri are 2 separate issues. So did the governor sign defunding Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, I believe he did.
Okay.
Yep, he did.
Okay, gotcha. So what we have left to worry about is basically abortions up to 9 months showing up on Missouri's ballot and making sure everyone's educated with the language, because that's not what it says. It doesn't say that. But the language that you would remember now, they can do 50 words. 50 words for, a ballot proposal that shows up on the ballot you will be voting on. And in 50 words, actually, it's probably about 15 or 20 pages that's actually represented by those 50 words. What they're not going to tell you is it's abortion up to 9 months, but that's exactly what it is. We've looked at the language. It's exactly the same as California's. So, that's unfortunate for us, that they were able to get that many signatures, but at the same time, will it be that way at the ballot box? I really don't think so. I find it very interesting that people are shoving at me in Twitter all the time these polls saying that 70% of Missourians want abortion, instituted here in the state, because currently it's illegal except where the mother's health is at risk.
I think I was asked like 4 times. I think I was asked like 4 times to sign petition for it. All in different parts of the state. Like they were even here in Holt Summit collecting signatures.
Yep.
They were pretty desperate.
Well, they were getting paid very well too. The rumor is that one company that had petition or signature takers was getting paid $10 per signature.
Holy crap.
$10 per signature, not per hour, per signature. So, and that was one of the companies, out-of-state companies, that hired petition signature gatherers. So I don't think that was the case with all of them. In fact, I think some of them were actual volunteers. So, but some of them were very, very well paid. So I think that's in the districts where they would have a hard time collecting signatures, and the very rural districts, which would be very difficult to get a signature for that sort of thing. So I think that's where they were paying and getting experts to come in from out of state to gather those signatures, professional signature gatherers, essentially.
Yeah. Like I know 2 of them for me were outside of storefronts, and then I think one I was actually at a Springfield Cardinals game, and they were collecting signatures outside of that too.
Wow.
So outside the library in Columbia.
Yeah.
That's at a Cardinals game, no less. That's terrible. Oh well.
Yeah.
Let me get to a few more comments. And let's see. Morkster. I love what Morkster wrote. And this is on Rumble, by the way. And Morkster says, Patrick, I actually ran into Lincoln Huff's wife last Sunday at a non-political event last weekend just by coincidence. I never got to meet Lincoln because it was the end of the event. He was drunk as a skunk. I would have gone off on him if actually knew it was him. So apparently a chance run-in with Lincoln Huff. Yeah, there's an alcohol problem up in Jeff City, but trust me, they bring that alcohol problem home with them when they're done for the year. So that's what I hear all the time. But now I'm going to take a look at YouTube and see what we got here for comments. Let's see. As a female, I would not vote for an abortion up to 9 months, says Maria 28. Well, Maria, I appreciate that, but that's unfortunately what they got. If they did get it through, that's the one they got through. Let's see. Rad Relic says, my wife and I had to make that hard choice twice as she suffered 2 times from a tubal pregnancy. A tubal litigation's different. That's not a standard abortion, but yet that has to be taken care of or the woman can die. So for a tubal litigation, I'm assuming is the procedure that you did, for the tubal pregnancy.
I had to go through that. Yes. It's a total different procedure.
Yep. So let's see. The casino petition cost $3 million, and each signature ended up costing them $15.05 each. Wow, from Misty Atkinson. Wow, I had no idea. Yep, and
I really want that casino at the lake.
Yep, that's right. Warrior Class 3 says the most dangerous place for a child to be in his mother's womb, and that's a very ironically true comment in this day and age. And John Williams says, isn't there another ballot initiative that seemingly ties revenue generation tickets to the pension fund? I'm not sure about that. I am not sure about that. I need to look into that. But you know what? I seem to remember something like that. And we were going through these in the February timeframe. I think we were going through all the ballot initiatives. Maybe it was January. So you might be onto something with that, John.
Well, they got to get money somewhere since they're divesting from China.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, if they had gold and silver, we could shore up the pension fund. They wouldn't have to worry about things so much. But they're short-sighted in that regard. Rad Relic says, yes, it's still hard, and we brought the baby home to be buried alongside my mother. And Rad, I am sorry to hear about that. Those tubal pregnancies, unfortunately, are just not meant to be. Let's see. And it passed the House on the last day. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that was a Senate joint resolution or a House joint resolution? Yeah, I disappeared for part of that because I was taking phone calls. So, and John and I were sitting together, basically in the House, out of the viewing area. I can't remember what we call it, but it was a Senate joint resolution. Gotcha. Okay, so that was among those SJRs they were passing. There was 2 of them, I believe. So there might be some other stuff on the ballot too, as John had just said. Yep. Well, it is what it is, gang, and it is what it isn't at the same time. We have a problem up in Jeff City. We need pest control. And the best way to start that pest control is to get strong leadership in the governor's mansion. Of course, strong leadership in Secretary of State's position, strong leadership in Lieutenant Governor, but Lieutenant Governor really doesn't have much of a face, with Missouri politics. But let's start concentrating on this for primaries. Let's start talking about this. And in fact, I did bring it up for everyone earlier. The Lieutenant Governor candidate, Tim Baker, is who I am voting for. So if you guys don't know about Tim Baker, look him up. So he's a Republican candidate, and I think he's really the only good choice we have. And that's my personal opinion. And once again, this isn't the Missouri Freedom Initiative endorsing people. Please, please, please don't get that picture out of what I'm saying here. I'm letting you know that we have a lot of rhinos and corporatists running for higher office right now that, quite frankly, could turn us into Illinois within probably 2 election cycles. So if that's what people want, they want Missouri transformed into Illinois, by all means, vote for Plocker, vote for Lincoln Huff, vote for Holly Rader, vote for Mike Kehoe if you want Missouri to become Illinois. If that proposition scares you, you really have to look very closely at these candidates, because, unfortunately, we're getting there, especially when you have a situation with leadership in the House that literally takes away legislation from people who don't vote with what leadership wants. I mean, that's kind of like a shot across the bow for totalitarianism, isn't it? I don't know what else to do to describe that, but I was told this not by one, but by multiple House representatives. Their legislation was dead for voting no on 727, including Bill Hardwick. And Bill Hardwick, in my opinion, had the most to lose. And he gave it up to vote with his constituents. God bless that man. God bless him. Okay, gang.
It says a lot to have principles.
Yes, that's right. That's rare these days, isn't it? Especially in Jefferson City. Because a lot of people will, unfortunately, trade it all up for money, for PAC money. That's exactly what, by the way, that's another thing. We'll be talking to Catherine and Kirby here real soon, but we got to start going through some of this PAC stuff here before the primaries. And so at any rate, that is coming up from Rogue Politics. And I know Catherine's taken some time off right now, some much needed time off. But if Catherine doesn't have time, I can work that, basically with Kirby Lane. And she and I could actually do some videos together on this, so we can get some of that budget data out, so we can know what happened with this year's budget, the insane crap that was added to our budget. Those are always very funny for me, though. Yes, they're upsetting, but at the same time, at that point, you just laugh. It's just to see how insane people are in Jeff City. They're putting these budgets together. Okay.
They don't even read them.
Yep, and don't even read them. Good point. They're big documents. How big was appropriations? We saw a stack of books. What was that, in Castile's office? No, that might have been in Travis Smith's office. I can't remember. Stack of blue books that represented all the appropriations for this year. That whoever it was working on it. And it wasn't Dirk Deaton either. I can't remember anymore. Gosh darn it. We went into their office, and this representative, I can't remember who it was anymore, was saying that kids would come into his office and have their pictures taken next to all these blue binders stacked up that were about 5 feet tall that made up Missouri's budget for this year. And kids would stand up next against it so they could, measure, how tall the the budget was versus the kids.
That's really sad.
It is. And it's sad, but it's funny. Particularly if people are actually going to that representative's office to have their kids' pictures taken next to the budget.
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, like, we continue to have omnibus problems up at the federal level, but where does that all come from?
Yep.
Comes from here in the state houses and state senates. Like, these legislators all come out of state legislatures most of the time.
Yep.
So, like, that's all they know.
Another unfortunate fact.
Yep.
But, and that's the thing, and people are saying all the time, oh my gosh, Pat, here you are fighting so hard for Missouri. Missouri's a cesspool. It's just like DC, but the fact of the matter is we're exposing it. That's what we're doing. We're exposing all this stuff in Missouri so we can start getting rid of these bad guys. I don't see any other states doing this right now. None. And I mean none, not even Idaho. And I like Idaho. Idaho has the capability of being a big red state leader if they wanted to be. And they're not getting
They're
rid
about
of
to get half of Oregon.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I just talked to someone in Idaho today, and they said that talk is going nowhere.
Really?
Yep. Unfortunately,
interesting.
And the reason being is because the logistics of going through DC to get that job done, to actually
that makes sense.
Yep. The people of Idaho have no problem with it. The people with Oregon have no problem with it, but the Oregon government has a problem with it, and the U.S. government has a problem with it, and that's why it's probably not going to become a reality.
Yeah.
So, hate to rain on
I mean,
everyone's parade. Go ahead.
I mean, the only argument I would be made, it doesn't change any House seats
Right.
in particular. It just changes representation. So
Yep.
that's really it. And that's the whole point of it too. So
yep. I have no problem with the Greater Idaho. None. I think that might be a good thing.
Well, yeah, and also too, to further your point, like, it's way easier to expose corruption here in Jeff City than it is in DC. It's on a smaller scale, and when things are on a smaller scale, it's easier to put a magnifying glass up to it.
Yep.
I think the IQ level is a bit lower here too. On the part of the
it is possible. There might be something to that, Gretchen. I hate to say that, because every state makes fun of the state south of it. For us, we make fun of Arkansas. They make fun of Texas. Minnesota makes fun of Iowa. Iowa makes fun of Missouri. And I just did the entire, Midwest. But gosh darn it, I used to think people were really, really smart, and that people, basically had the best interests of their kids in mind. And I used to think that about 15 years ago. In the last 15 years, I don't want to say I've been jaded or I've become a giant cynic or anything else like that, but I have seen mass stupidity. And it really, really upsets me because it's based on one thing and one thing only, and that's narcissism. And that narcissism is self-interest.
That's what I was going to say. It's the me generation.
That's right. So I see a lot of that. And I as you guys know, my mom passed away a year ago, and she gave up everything for all of us boys. She had 4 boys. And she didn't even work until my twin brother and I, the youngest, went to kindergarten. Then she went back to work. So she was stay-at-home mom for many, many years. And my oldest brother, Darren, 6 years older than me, and my brother Chris, who's 18 months older than me, my twin brother, I am 5 minutes older than. And she literally, her life was taking care of us boys. And I don't see a lot of that in society today. I do see it, but it's rare. It's much more rare. So it's that self-interest thing. I think that gets in the way. Hate to call it narcissism.
I think another thing that's really important is we need to flip our central committees.
Yes, we do.
Way too many rhinos there.
Yep, I'd agree with you on that too. So we got Spencer Roan in the house with us. Hey there, Spencer. Thank you for joining. And Spencer, are you with us? Can you talk? We're not hearing anything. You're lighting up, but we're not. Tell you what, we can't do tech support during the lives. But I do want to bring up something here. Morkster said. Remember, he said that he ran into Lincoln Huff, Saturday, a non-political social event. He said, that his hair was impeccable, despite the fact that he was intoxicated. So that's one of Lincoln Huff's superpowers. That's why I want to know the product he puts in his hair, because it doesn't matter how drunk he gets, his hair never gets messed up. And so it's mousse, it's hair gel, it's hairspray, it's something. It's a combination of them, but that's his superpower, is impeccable hair no matter what. When he gets up in the morning, his hair is impeccable, so that's just a superpower of his. Now, Markster also said, did the so-called water bill pass? Now, there was one attempt to amend a bill. Gretchen, do you know anything about that? Did any of those water bills get through as an amendment?
I don't think any of the water bills went through, but do not quote me.
Okay.
But
I think we were worried about one that got amended in the Senate, and or got amended in the House, and then didn't make it back to the Senate because the Senate closed up shop. I think that was it. And of course, it wasn't the bill running through by itself. It was amended to another bill, which is what they often do at the end of the year. That's why we call them Christmas tree bills, gang. That's the way they get bad legislation over the finish line, is in a mad dash in the last week of the legislative session. All these amendments go on to these bills, and these are the amendments are actually bills that never made it through the process. And so the people see a way out. So it's kind of like pin the tail on the donkey. They just put a whole bunch of crap on a bill and hope that it passes, and the governor signs it, and the courts ignore the fact that they've completely went around the single subject title. And they hope a court doesn't catch on to that and then literally kill the whole, law, because it was passed together, and it was like 28 separate bills that went through together. So that's unfortunately what we often get in Missouri, but not this year and not last year. Let's see. Morkster also says 24 Republican governors signed a letter to Biden to reject the WHO treaty that would give them virtually all power if a pandemic hits. Parson was not one of them. Let's see. So Parson apparently is on board with, with Pfizer, with Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. They're all here, right here in Missouri. So I do believe
Parsons also went to Israel too, and guess what Israel did during the pandemic?
Yeah, they vaccinated the piss out of their own people. Yep, and with Pfizer, by the way. So maybe they just loaded up all those syringes right on the plane that Parson took out there. So, you never know. He could just deliver for, and you know what though? He is kind of a lapdog for Pfizer, isn't he? So maybe that would be in his best interest, is to save them shipping costs by literally loading him up on the plane he went out on. So, but yeah. So we do have, unfortunately, a lot of biotech in the state of Missouri, and they do own our governor. So that's why the governor was only passing exemption. I'm sorry, he only wrote an exemption as an executive order for state employees and state contractors, not for the people. Because Pfizer would have got upset if he did that. What are you doing, Governor Parson? We gave you like $250,000 in your PAC last time you were running. Thought we'd get, a little understanding out of that. Some kind of consideration. So, all right. Well, that doesn't surprise me that Parson didn't do that. All right. Let's see. I'm looking at YouTube now. Let's see. Original Intent says, I think fear is a bigger problem than narcissism, but I've been out of the game for a while. Fear is a very strong weapon wielded against the populace. It certainly is. Fear of a tax audit. Better pay my taxes or I'll go to jail. That's how they get you paying taxes. The fear of going to jail. The fear of literally losing everything you own if you don't pay your taxes, because they throw you in jail for 10 years, your house goes for sale. Fear of losing your job if you don't take the COVID vaccine. That's another great one. The fear of public scrutiny or public chiding if you don't wear the mask. And I'm talking during the scandemic, by the way, gang, not now. Now it's very interesting for me to see who's wearing a mask. That
sounds like the mafia, Patrick.
Yeah, I know. And, the people that wear the masks, are, they're always, and I'm not talking about it in everyday life here. You watch videos of these thugs, like in Cincinnati or in St. Louis or Los Angeles, they're always masked up. So the thugs have literally understood this now. Hey, listen, they can't do facial recognition on you when you're wearing a mask. So anytime you go out and you do something illegal, just wear the mask, and you can run around and wear that all day long and no one will question it because of COVID, right? Before COVID, if someone was running around with a mask, they were met with suspicion. What are they doing? What are their intentions? Now we don't do that anymore, even though in California, they run into stores and steal carts full of product off the shelves, run out the doors, because it's now legal to steal up to $1,000 worth of product from your local neighborhood Walgreens and Walmart and Save On and CVS and everywhere else out there, even the grocery stores, gang. That's because the police can't be bothered, basically to stop people thieving for thieving that little. But when you do make it legal to steal at $1,000, I guarantee you they're not finished. They'll probably bring it up to $5,000 here in the next year or two, with inflation and everything.
I mean, good luck getting business insurance in California right now.
Yeah, tell me about it. Let's see. That's Tom joined us. Tom says if the Constitution was followed as written, much of this wouldn't be an issue. But we elect tyranny control freaks. Yes, we do, Tom. And Spencer Rohn is saying Jurisdiction Limitation Act updates.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go, buddy. I hear you.
Yeah, sorry, it was taking me some time to find out. I've never actually used the system before, so
no problem. Welcome
I
aboard.
was just figuring it out. Yeah, so I just wanted to provide some updates. I've been emailing a bunch of different state legislators across the different states, of which the ones that I think have the best chance of considering the legislation. And Representative Travis Smith said that next year he would introduce it. And one representative from Idaho, Representative GETTR, said that she would introduce it, or she would at least consider introducing it. And so we'll sort of see where it goes from there. But yeah, we're still sort of at the introductory stage of seeing how it plays out. My hope is that it really starts the conversation once it gets sort of formally introduced by the states, or at least the state legislators.
Sure. I'll tell you what, Spencer, could you do me a favor? I remember you and I talking about this on Twitter, but for our larger audience right now, would you mind telling them what the Jurisdiction Limitation Act is?
Yeah, sure. So what it would do is basically it would return us to the original meaning of the Constitution and what the founders intended in regards to state law, and also the 10th Amendment, by basically requiring that the constitutionality of state laws, in order for it to be recognized by the state in question, to be basically put in the hands of state courts, and sort of the constitutionality be sort of determined by state courts as opposed to federal courts. And sort of it's basically an active resistance of not recognizing the jurisdiction of federal courts over state laws. So it would sort of basically create a new system of constitutional law within the state, as opposed to sort of federal court tyranny, whose history has just been about trying to throw out as many state laws as possible, since they're all just elected from Washington, all the federal judges.
Yeah, so
and not
you know what we're dealing with the Second Amendment Preservation Act right now, right?
Yes, I know that. Right.
So if the Jurisdiction Limitation Act actually became law in the state of Missouri, that would never have happened. They couldn't have overturned SEPA at the Eighth Circuit. Is that correct?
No. Well, yeah. I mean, at least if basically the resolution that Representative Travis Smith is working on, and I've also been the basic template, this would not be recognized by the state of Missouri. No, it'll be up to the determination of the state of Missouri, of the people, to decide what they would want to do if that sort of conflict comes up. But yeah, but it would basically return to sort of a long history. Actually, there's a really, I think I might have shared it in the journal, but there's a long basically history in the United States of basically this sort of dichotomy between state and federal courts and state and federal laws. And there's this really great book that actually goes into detail about all the instances of it, primarily before the Civil War, but even cases of it after. And yeah, in a lot of cases, historically, when the people have said to the federal government, basically this is an overreach, even back then, sometimes the federal judges would basically back off. So we'll see what happens, but I think it'd be sort of it's sort of pushing the conversation so that the people of the state of Missouri, Idaho, Montana, etc., have a chance to decide sort of what where they want to stand in relation to their own laws, and also to sort of their own sovereignty under the 10th Amendment.
That sounds really good to me. Spencer, have I met you up in Jeff City before?
No, I actually don't live in Missouri as of now.
Okay, gotcha. Understood.
Actually, maybe I don't think we've met before, but yeah, but that's what I've been working on.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what, I was going to say, when the next session opens up, if you happen to be in the state of Missouri, please join us for a knock and chalk. I think you would really, really enjoy that. Get a lot of people up there.
If I'm in the state of Missouri.
Yep. So in Lunatic Fringe, that's Tom Martz, by the way, with the Lock and Smith Foundation. By the way, look no further than Tom Martz if you have water problems at your house, by the way. A shameless plug for Tom, but for all he does for the state of Missouri, he deserves that. He is an expert on water softening, water filtration, and reverse osmosis. But I do want to say, Tom says, Article 3 of the state constitution clearly states legislative authority in the General Assembly. Legislative authority is in the General Assembly. Yet every political subdivision across the state ignores it. Only charter political subdivisions have any legislative authority. I got a question for you in that, Tom. Does that mean that we can give it all to the Speaker of the House? Because he is in, or she is in the General Assembly. Because that's what we got with H.R. 11 in 2023. And Tom says, nope, that's exactly what I expected Tom to say. So actually, Tom, you and I are going to have a conversation here real soon, because I got to craft an email in November to remind everyone who just got newly elected that they don't give up their power. And I'm going to need your help to write that letter, I think. And Spence, thanks so much for chiming in, buddy. Morkster says, was there any truth to Parson perhaps vetoing gold and silver bill if it made it through both chambers? I don't know if that's true. I didn't hear that from the governor, but I can tell you that it came from, unfortunately, Plocker. And Plocker did lie to us about whether or not gold and silver would show up on the floor. He said it would be on Friday morning. He was also the one who said he was telling everyone that Parson was going to veto it. So we don't know if that's true or not, that the governor would have vetoed it. We do know that Plocker was the one who was telling folks that that's what was going to go on with that bill if it did make it to the governor's desk. But that's okay. We could have dealt with that in any number of ways. But at the same time, I don't think it would have been in Parsons' best interest to veto the gold and silver bill. And remember now, there's still a tiny bit of filming, I think, that may still happen for the documentary in Jefferson City on the silver and gold bill that'll happen during veto session. Because I think we need to get an interview from Patterson and one from Plocker to find out why it wasn't put on the floor and for the TV show, because we have to explain why the bill never got on the House floor on the TV show. So Plocker and Patterson need to answer for that. And if they want to point their fingers at the Senate and say it's the Senate's fault, it didn't go on because they closed up shop at 10:05 a.m. on Friday morning and gavelled out, then that's what will be on the show. So we can explain what that means, though, for the layman, on the TV show. But filming, I think there's going to be one more round of filming here in the veto session. Don't quote me on that, but that's the plan for right now. Tom says they still have leadership to vote on in both chambers. That's correct. So they already did a preliminary vote 18 months in advance for Patterson to become the Speaker of the House. 18 months before he would take that position. And I guess they got to hold another one here real soon. Well, Patterson doesn't have a primary challenger. So he has a Democrat he's running against. That technically is a primary challenger for Patterson, by the way. So it is what it is. Patterson's fate will be decided in November, but I suspect that he will win his election, unfortunately. But not unfortunately. I meant for whatever reason, it's just hard to get rid of some of those guys. Okay. Going to look for any more comments here before I go ahead.
Representative Travis Smith is going to be running for state senate, I think.
He sure is. Yep.
But I'm curious, if he doesn't win, there's still a good chance that he'll just run for state rep and then he'll be able to introduce the act. That was I was kind of confused about because I know that he's running against an incumbent, I think.
He is a representative, so he wouldn't be running as an incumbent for a senator. For the House position, he could run as an incumbent.
Yeah, no, but I was saying that, if he doesn't win the state senate, I guess, does he plan on running for the state house, which would be, automatically the incumbent, irrespective of whether or not he does in the primaries for the state senate, and he's just sort of testing it out. And then if that doesn't happen, then he'll run for the state rep.
I don't know if he can run for senator and rep at the same time. Tom, can you weigh in on that for me, buddy? I think you're right. I think he's going for a Senate district, and unfortunately going against. Oh dear God, I'm terrible with names. When you get over 50, gang, watch out. Gosh darn it, who is the guy? I need to almost go through a list of names here. I'll find him. And the guy
could he run for?
Is very popular. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was wondering if he could run for the Republican primary, right? And then in the general election, he could run the Republican primary for the state Senate. But then if he loses that, he can run in the general election for the state house. Or is that not possible, irrespective of Republican or just write-in independent, I guess, because he ran unopposed last time?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know how that works. He can't run for both, says Tom, but Tom is still writing right now. He can't run for both. And I knew that part. They're both at the same time. So Tom, if he's running for Senate, that means he's not rerunning for his House seat, which he's had for 4 years. He could do another 4 years in the House.
So he can't run. So he can't run in the Republican primary for Senate, and then he cannot run in the general for another seat.
Nope, I don't
I guess
think so.
That's not allowed.
And I forget the name of the guy he's running against, but he's a very popular guy up there in Jeff City. Gosh darn it, if I can't remember.
Yeah. See, that was a few legislators said that they couldn't introduce it because, I think one was in Idaho, another one was in Montana, because they were getting termed out or they didn't know if they were going to win. So they said that to come back next year, or when they know if they had won the election.
Yep.
So that'd be really unfortunate. That'd be a huge setback if he didn't win.
Okay, he's giving up his House seat to run for Senate. Okay, that's what he's doing.
Okay.
So if he does not win that Senate primary, he's out. So that's what he chose to do. So, yep, it is what it is, gang. I mean, Travis Smith has been a good friend to the initiative for a long time. And the thing is actually we like both people running for that Senate seat. And I just got it in here. I'm saying that, and I can't come up with the guy's name right now. And I'm sorry about that. Actually, let me get into my email real quick here and see if I can find anything there. I get lots of email, gang. Lots of email. Sorry about the noises here. Brad Hudson. That's who it is. Brad Hudson is who he's running against.
It's a pretty crowded race.
Yep.
There's 4 or 5 people running.
Yep.
It's pretty competitive.
Yep. And Brad Hudson is who I think is probably the most popular running for that seat. So, and by the way, I'm not saying that everyone should vote for him. I'm just saying up in Jeff City, in his district, he's quite popular as a representative. So, but I suspect Travis Smith is in his area too.
Well, I think I was just really impressed that Travis was so eager and willing, to take on this very bold act. So that's why I really think I didn't get a response from Representative. So maybe I should just reach out again, but that'd be kind of unfortunate in this sense. But maybe I can try to see if I can rally somebody else to kick it off.
Yep. So, and I will tell you guys, apparently, this is just hot off the press. Newsmax is reporting Bill Eigel is surging in the polls. It says, Patriots, great news. We just received our highest poll yet. New polling out this week shows that Missouri's governor's race is anybody's game. Jay Ashcroft, 22%. Mike Kehoe, 20%. Bill Eigel, 14%. Undecided, 42%. So that's very, very interesting. So that's 81's race right now with that many undecided, gang. With that many undecided. And Bill Eigel, by the way, is only 8 points behind Jay Ashcroft. 6 points behind Mike Kehoe. So, at any rate, it is what it is. I just thought I'd share that with you guys because I had to open up my email.
Any exciting congressional races for any pro-liberty congressional, or are they just going straight to the swamp?
Nope. This one, actually, I got from the Bill Eigel folks, and it's a Newsmax poll that they copied in their email. So that's all that was in this one.
Makes sense.
But as I get polls, but I will bring them up in live streams as I continue getting polls. And I'll even report on polls for the federal stuff, even though I don't tend to follow that stuff. I just don't care. You know, I literally, I know this sounds terrible, but I just don't care about the federal elections. I do vote in them, but I don't report on them, and I certainly don't get emotionally invested in them. So that's what I mean by I don't care.
Yeah, of course. We've all become numb to the federal government's actions.
Pretty much. Yep, pretty much. And it's so to do so, and I guess Prism is having all kinds of problems connecting. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, gang, we should probably go ahead and end the live stream here. I don't know why, but the broadcasting software was having some issues. I'm sorry about that. Tom also says, but he can lose that Senate seat and run for the House 2 years later. And I'm a Missourian first. Tom, I'm a Missourian first too. Absolutely. You and I are rowing in the same direction. The federal stuff it just doesn't matter to us. I explained that earlier in the broadcast. I'll say it at the end of the broadcast here. As much as I appreciate everyone being here, I'm sorry I took up so much time talking. But the fact of the matter is, in Biden's America, we have red states and we have blue states. And among those red states, we have some really, really, really conservative red states like Tennessee, Florida, and to a certain extent, Texas, and to another extent, Missouri. How could we exist? Because Biden's so bad, and Biden's going to kill us all, and he's destroying everything. He certainly isn't doing anything about immigration, but no one's doing anything about immigration right now, except for Oklahoma. And they're being sued by the federal government, where Biden says, of course, I'm going to do something about this. This is a real problem. I really hate the fact that, these illegal immigrants are crossing over our border, coming into our country. Yet he's the one who's giving them the financial incentive to do so. His administration created the app for them to even know where to cross the border safely. And it's updated like every 5 minutes based on government data. And Oklahoma is saying no more to illegal immigration, and the federal government is saying no more to Oklahoma. So the federal government is definitely wanting the immigration to flow through. States are trying to deal with it. The federal government is saying, oh, no, you don't. That's our job. Then why aren't you doing your job? Well, but the Republicans won't let us. The Republicans say, no, the Democrats won't let us. Exactly what we're dealing with in the state of Missouri between the House and the Senate. Pointing fingers, blaming other people why things don't get done. Instead of actually rolling up their sleeves and doing the work of the people like Bill Hardwick did in the Missouri House. He rolled up his sleeves, he voted as his constituents asked him to, and he took his licks from leadership. He lost his legislation for the year, possibly his ability to handle any legislation as well, which is why we would have lost silver and gold. And I am
Maisie
not... Go ahead.
Also lost her legislation.
Yep, Maisie did. Yep, that's right. Maisie did. I believe Holly Jones... I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Misty on that, but I think Holly Jones was going to vote no on that.
Were there any state level immigration proposals similar to what was being done in Texas and Oklahoma?
Yes, there were.
And those were not voted down?
Billington, that's correct. And unfortunately, our group started working with that, but we couldn't get enough traction within the conservatives. I'm sorry, not the conservatives. I'm sorry. The conservatives were great with the bill. The problem was the rhinos and the corporatists. Those were the ones that absolutely would not move on, would not co-sponsor it, said, I'm not for that. I don't believe in that. So that's where we have to have new leadership. So we did try to get a bill, and it was Billington that actually put forth the bill. I forget the bill number, but at any rate, it was Billington.
What would it have done, the bill? It was just similar to would have made it a state crime to... It
would have made it a felony.
Illegally?
Yeah, it would have been a felony offense to be in the state illegally. The first time is a warning. The second time is actually a felony count, along with jail time and a fine. So at least it's something. The states can do certain things. It's just like Oklahoma. So that's where, we need to come together as individual states and start protecting this country, because the federal government is having it invaded. And I know that's an unpopular view with certain people, on one side of the aisle. They think it's great that we're getting all these people flooding into our country while our economy is going down the tubes. But of course, the people on that side of the aisle don't actually, they subscribe to the 3.2% inflation that we have right now. They think that's real.
Mhm.
John Williams, the Shadow Science, has it pegged at 15%. I mean, the numbers are off, gang. The federal government lies by a factor of 5. That is a rhyme that we have in the Missouri Freedom Initiative. The government lies by a factor of 5.
It's closer to 18%.
Yep.
Because I've been actually keeping track.
Yep.
And loaf of bread, eggs, gas, housing, everything. And it's closer to 18%.
Yep. Yep. So let's see. Tom says, I much prefer the 9th Amendment, the most trampled amendment we have. That is personal rights. So, and I agree with Tom, that's trampled on a regular basis. So we seem to think of, if the rights, are not protected by the federal government, they should be protected by the state. But the fact of the matter is, these rights come from God. So the personal amendments matter a great deal as well. We deal with the 10th Amendment quite a bit, but 9th Amendment stuff, Tom, you'll have to remind me. Next time you and I talk, man, let's hear about some stuff that's been passed. Big 9th Amendment legislation's been done in states. And maybe we can get some of that done here in Missouri as well, as opposed to just doing some 10th Amendment stuff.
I think there has been, like, historically in state constitutions, some sort of concession.
I'm sure.
Sort of something similar to the 9th Amendment. So we just have to look. I'll do some historical research.
Yep. That would be good to hear. The 9th Amendment is often forgotten. Tom, you were ever so correct on that. And even I don't talk about it very much, not like the 10th Amendment, but 10th Amendment is the stuff that, the group started with the Second Amendment Preservation Act, going on to gold and silver. And also, too, guys, I do have some good news for you. Plocker would never allow, remember our group for 2 years, 2022 and 2023, tried to get rid of sales tax on food in the state of Missouri. Plocker would never let it on the floor. You guys remember that? Now Plocker's gone. So there is a high likelihood we can actually dabble in that arena again, trying to get rid of sales tax on food. So that's good news for us going forward. Because apparently Plocker hates tax cuts. He's a Republican, by the way. He keeps telling us that. But he's really not big into tax cuts. He tells us he's into tax cuts, but they never end up on his floor when he was speaker or when he was floor leader. So I don't know what to say. Plocker, perhaps you're being hypocritical. Perhaps. So, well, I talk to Plocker like he watches the show, guys. I don't know that he watches the show.
I bet he watches it after it's over.
I'm sure that there's been people that have watched the show for Plocker, but I'm not sure he's watched. But it is what it is. Guys, I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits for the evening, unless there's something else that we've forgotten that we need to chat about. We talked about silver and gold and what happened to that. Let's see. We've been talking about primaries. And, hang on. Morkster had some more stuff. Thanks, Patrick, for all that you do and will continue to do for liberty in Missouri. You are an inspiration. Morkster, you are an inspiration to me. So if you actually happen to have a chance run-in with Lincoln Huff again, be sure to ask him what product he uses on his hair, because I think that's the most important question for him running for lieutenant governor, because his hair's never messed up, ever, 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 not once. There's not a single picture of him with messed up hair. Not one. So we need to know what his superpower is and what his secret is. I think it's a combination of gel and mousse, and he mixes it together like, in his bathroom or whatever, makes it into a super gel mousse. I think
may be a toupee.
It could be what? I'm sorry?
A toupee.
It could be a toupee, but I doubt it. I just doubt it. I think that's his real hair. I think it's just product. So, and also too, he's a cattleman, so he's out there rounding up horses and cattle and stuff like that. And of course, not a hair's out of place on his head. So it's super jelly stuff. I think, just some weird concoction of gel and mousse, I think. So that's his real hair. Tom agrees. That's his real hair. And that needs to become a campaign issue here for Lieutenant Governor. Basically, is that a prerequisite for being Lieutenant Governor? Is like perfect, pristine, hair all the time? Because it might be. I mean, Tom, is that in the Constitution at all? Do you find that anywhere? I'm teasing you, Tom. I'm just making fun of Lincoln Huff again. Lincoln, forgive me, buddy. It's all in good fun. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, gang. I'm going to go ahead and wrap her up. I want to thank all of you for joining us on whichever platform you were on, whether it be Twitter, on Odysee, on Rumble, or on YouTube. And, of course, the folks that joined on Gilded to be part of the actual conversation tonight. So we had Voodoo Queen, Gretchen, and let's see, we had Spencer Rohn joining us, and as well as Lunatic Fringe, also known as Tom Martz, water expert extraordinaire. All right, gang, that's all for tonight. Look forward to doing another live stream next Saturday, and I'll send out an email always before I do it. Guys, thank you very much for being a part of this Liberty Project, what we call the Missouri Freedom Initiative. We're about to have a chessboard shakeup in the state of Missouri. Let's be a part of that. Let's make sure that we get good folks in. Let's all participate in this process. And I thank you all for joining us. When there was 2 hours of broadcast and you spent it with us, that's an honor for us. Thank you very much. May God bless each and every one of you. And also, please remember, there's a representative, Ben Baker, who lost his daughter recently to gangs in Haiti. That was 2 days ago. Please remember Representative Baker and his family in your prayers.